Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. You all know that we are so very lucky that we were able to learn these teachings of the Buddha because our teacher, Most Venerable Nibbedhika Sutta AN. So first we will pay our respect to our teacher. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. We all know that there is something that Buddha praised a lot. If you want to learn the teachings of the Buddha, there's one thing that Buddha praised again and again. That's something you should have within you if you are to realize the teachings of the Buddha. So what's that? What's helped you the most? Who are the people who realize these teachings? Huh? Who are the people who realize these teachings? Huh?
Arahants.
Yeah, like they became arahants because of what? What is quality they possess? Huh?
Shraddha.
Because of the Dhamma.
Sorry, because of the?
Dhamma.
Yeah, they were able to make use of the Dharma to attain enlightenment, to become arahants. Because they are wise, no? That is what you should have, wisdom. If you don't have wisdom, then we cannot benefit from the teachings of the Dharma, because Buddha clearly stated, that's my teachings, this Dharma is for the wise, not for the fools. So this wisdom is something we may possess to some degree, but it is also something that is conditioned. It is not a permanent thing that is there. Like it is there because supported by certain things. So it is something that be improved, something that can be nourished. So if you do not do the necessary things to nourish and to mature your wisdom, then what happens? It will gradually fade away. Because it may be there. The seed of wisdom may be in you. But if you do not water it, and if you do not take care of that wisdom, because it is also a conditioned thing, it gradually declines. Then there's nothing for you to gain from the teachings of the Buddha. So we have to engage in things that develop our wisdom. So what are the things that help us to develop wisdom? Can anyone say what helps us to nourish our wisdom? What are the things we can do to improve our wisdom, to protect our wisdom from declining, to improve it? What can we do as disciples of the Buddha?
Practice the Dhamma.
Yeah, we have to practice the teachings. That means to contemplate upon the teachings of the Buddha. Think according to the teachings of the Buddha. Think according to the suttas, the words of the Arahants. So when we train our thought process to think along these lines, along the suttas, then gradually our wisdom develops. Listening to Dhamma, Buddha also pointed out, is a way for you to improve your wisdom. Engaging in Dhamma discussions is also helpful to develop your wisdom. So in this way, if you are to and practicing samatha and vipassana meditation, calm and insight meditation, as Buddha said, one should know this is the way to develop wisdom. What is the way? To practice calm and insight meditation. And one should also know, if you do not engage in this calm and insight meditation, that will lead to a decline of your wisdom. That also Buddha said. So you have to practice meditation as well if you are to develop wisdom. Because only the wise sons are able to benefit from the teachings of the Buddha, not the unwise. So, and in our life, we come across certain situations, no, circumstances that we get fed up. It can be a person, it can be a job. We get fed up with some things and we want to give them up. Maybe a friendship. We are fed up with that person and then we do not associate with that person any longer. But after time, then we might associate with the same person again. The same things you give up, you may find yourself engaging in the same things. So that when we feel that we are frustrated with certain things, that we are disenchanted with certain things, displeased with certain things, it is circumstances. And it doesn't last for long. Because that is something that's spontaneous, like it just happened because of certain circumstances. When those circumstances are no longer there, then we are drawn to the gratification of those things. And we might pursue them again. Because that when we are fed up with certain things, or we want to give up certain things, we don't do that based on wisdom. We do it based on the prevailing circumstances. I don't like that person. I don't want to associate with him. And you then distance that person. And later on, you may find again, you are talking to him. You are making friends with him. And then you give up certain habits. But once again, you take them up. So it's not permanent. It's ever changing. Why? Because that decision making is not based on wisdom, on seeing the reality of things. So today we are going to learn in this sutta that how you actually get disenchanted with certain things based on realization. How you give up, seeing the reality of certain things. So that giving up that leads to happiness. That leads to progress in the Noble Eightfold Path. That leads to Nibbana. So that process is based on wisdom, realization, understanding of the reality of certain aspects, so that then you can, certain things that then you can give up them through wisdom. So then you don't pursue them anymore. So this name of this sutta, where Buddha discusses these facts, the name is Nibbedhika Sutta, meaning penetrative wisdom. It's in the Anguttara Nikaya, numerical discourse of the Buddha. So this is how the sutta begins. Okay, the Buddha said, because I will teach you a penetrative exposition of the Dharma. Listen and attend closely, I will speak. So what is this teaching? Penetrative exposition of the Dharma. Okay. Then Buddha said, and what because is that penetrative exposition of the Dharma? Penetrative exposition means you are going to see into certain things with wisdom so that you are able to see the true nature of those things, the reality of those things. That is penetrative wisdom. We say ataha bhuta jnana, the knowledge of things as they really are. Okay. So Buddha said, and what because is that penetrative expositions of the Dharma? So first is, sensual pleasures should be understood. What is the first? Sensual pleasures should be understood. Then the source and origin of sensual pleasures should be understood. Then the diversity of sensual pleasures should be understood. The result of sensual pleasures should be understood. The cessations of sensual pleasures should be understood. The way leading to the cessation of sensual pleasures should be understood. So with regard to sensual pleasures, what has to be understood? First, you have to understand what sensual pleasures are. Then you have to understand the source, the origin of sensual pleasures. Then Buddha says you have to also understand the diversity of the sensual pleasures. Then the results of the sensual pleasures. Then the cessation of sensual pleasures. Then the path leading to the cessation of sensual pleasures. With regard to sensual pleasures, you have to understand all that. That is the first thing that Buddha pointed out. The second aspect is you have to understand feelings. Feelings should be understood. And the source and origin of feelings should be understood. The diversity of feelings should be understood. The result of feelings should be understood. The cessation of feelings should be understood. The way leading to the cessation of feelings should be understood or realized. Okay. Now we discuss sensual pleasures, feelings, then perceptions. Then what is the first thing then? It's the same as before. Perception should be understood. Then the source and origin of perceptions should be understood. Then what? The diversity of perception should be understood. Next what? The results of perception should be understood. Then the cessation of perception should be understood. The path leading to the cessations of perception should be understood. So 6 all in all. With regard to each aspect, we discuss sensual pleasures, feeling, perception. Next factor is the tense should be understood. We will discuss each and every aspect, okay? The tense should be understood. Then what? Now you should know the pattern. Okay? Can someone say? Tense should be understood, then?
The origin or the source of
Yeah.
the change should be
The origin or the source of the tense should be understood. Then what? It's the same pattern.
The diversity.
The diversity of tense should be understood. Next what?
The result of.
Yeah, very good. The result of tense should be understood. Then the cessation of tense should be understood. Then the path leading to the cessation of tense should be understood. So we have discussed 4 points. The fifth factor Buddha points out, we have to understand or we have to realize karma should be understood, realized. Then the origin and cessation of karma has to be, the origin or the source of karma has to be realized. Then the diversity of karma has to be realized. Thereafter, the results of karma has to be realized. The cessation of karma has to be realized. The path leading to the cessation of karma has to be realized. Next is suffering has to be realized. The origin of suffering has to be realized. Then the diversity of suffering has to be realized. the results of suffering has to be realized. The cessation of suffering has to be realized. And the way leading to the cessation of suffering also has to be realized. So 6 factors. With regard to each factors, you have to realize how many things? 6. Their nature, their origin, their diversity, their result, their cessation, and the way by which they are eradicated or where they cease. So what are the 6 factors we discussed? We have to realize sensual pleasures, what? Feeling. We have to remember these things if we are going through the sutta, okay? This is like the summary. Sensual pleasures, feeling, perception, what else? Pains, karma,
Karma,
and
suffering.
suffering. So these 6 will be discussed in this sutta in detail. So if we are able to have yatha bhuta jnana, know these things, the reality of these things as they really are with regard to these 6 factors, then our problems are solved. So no more wandering in samsara, no more rebirth, all the suffering is eradicated. This is the one thing that we could not solve for eons. It is because we failed to realize these things that we wandered on this samsaric journey for many eons. Also, unless we realize, as long as we do not realize this, then we have to journey in this woeful cycle of rebirth. Again and again, being reborn in the planes of misery. And there is no end to the suffering we will experience. So with regard to these things, if we are able to realize all this, then that is escape from suffering, freedom from suffering. So then Buddha explains each of the factors. Okay, when it was said, sensual pleasures should be understood. The source and origin of sensual pleasures should be understood. The diversity of sensual pleasures should be understood. The result of sensual pleasures should be understood. Yes, the diversity, the result, the cessation of sensual pleasures should be understood. The way leading to the cessation of sensual pleasures should be understood. For what reason was this said? The reason behind why a person has to, so the meaning actually of these things, Buddha explains, okay? So Buddha says with regard to sensual pleasures, he says, there are bhikkhus, these 5 objects of sensual pleasures. Objects, so we say 5 chords of sensual pleasures. Are you familiar with these 5 aspects of sensual pleasures? What are they? Buddha explains here, forms cognizable by the eye that are wished for, desired, agreeable, pleasing, connected with sensual pleasure. Okay, forms that you find is agreeable, pleasing. Okay, beautiful forms. That is one object of sensual pleasure. Then what else? Sounds that you hear, that you find pleasing, alluring, desirable, things you delight in. Such sounds are also objects of sensual pleasures. What else? Someone?
Taste, Swaminatha.
Yeah, before taste, form, sounds,
Orders.
smells, no? Smells, odors, smells. Then comes taste. Taste that we find desirable, taste we delight in, taste that we find agreeable and pleasing. Next, tangibles, the touch, pleasant touch that we find appealing. These five are the objects of sensual pleasure. And Buddha goes on to say, however, these are not sensual pleasures. These five. These are what? Objects of sensual pleasures. Buddha says here, however, these are not sensual pleasures. In the Noble One's discipline or Noble One's teachings, these are called objects of sensual pleasures. A person's sensual pleasure is lustful intention. So this is some deep Dharma fact we are going to learn here. That means we are delighted in these five chords sensual pleasures, five chords of sensual pleasures, no, five objects of sensual pleasures. But that in fact are not sensual pleasures. Buddha says sensual pleasure is the lustful intention, the thoughts, lustful thoughts that arise in your mind. That is sensual pleasure. And there's a very nice verse. Buddha says, Sankappa rago purisassa kamo. Sorry? What did he say?
That's what I was going to say. Sankappa rago purisassa.
Very good. Sankappa rago purisassa kamo. What does that mean? That means a person's sensual pleasure is lustful intention. Sankappa rago. It is something that arises in a thought, an intention. A lustful intention. Nete kama yani chittani loke. The pretty things in the world are not sensual pleasures. The pretty things, the fine things, the desirable things we find in the world, be it the beautiful form, sound, taste, tangible, whatever, those are not sensual pleasures. If they arise in your mind with regard to those five objects of sensual pleasure, a lustful intention, that is sensual pleasure. Nete kamayani chittani loke. Sankaparago purisassa kamo tittanti chittani tateva loke. That means the pretty things remain just as they are in the world. The pleasing, delightful things you see in the world, they remain just as they are. That the problem arises in your mind. You get attached, you get an intention, lustful thoughts with regard to those objects. That is where the problem lies. That is sensual pleasure. The pretty things in the world, Buddha says, just remain as they are. Tittanti chittani tateva loke. Atetta dhira vinyanti chandan. Only the wise ones remove the desire for them. Desire for what? Desire for the five objects of sensual pleasure. Only wise ones are able to eradicate that desire. So that's how it is. So this verse is, the pretty things in the world are not sensual pleasures. A person's sensual pleasure is lustful intention. The pretty things remain just as they are in the world, but the wise remove the desire for them. So if Buddha didn't teach us these things, how can we understand? No? How profound that teaching? Or else we are born, we learn, we go to jobs, we earn a living, we build houses, we live a family life. Then we don't know anything. We don't realize anything with regard to this life. We do not nurture our wisdom. And then we again fall into the samsaric journey. But see how the things the Buddha teaches us. So here in this way, Buddha pointed us about, described this sensual pleasure. So understand this, it means like this something. Think of a flower. It's a beautiful flower, is there. So what is the nature of the flower? It blossoms from a bud into a flower. And then what happens? It gradually withers. It loses its color. It loses its scent, the smell, and it loses its form, the beautiful form. So these are what? The chords of sensual pleasure you find in a flower. There is a color and there is a certain touch to it that is also soft and appealing. Then the smell is appealing to you. So all this, they are impermanent though. That is why I say the pretty things in the world are not sensual pleasures. But seeing the flower, there is a lustful intention. We delight in that. We get attached to that beautiful flower. But Buddha says the pretty things remain just as they are in the world. What does it mean? It remains just as they are. The flower, it gradually blooms and it withers away. That beauty is not going to last forever. Why? It's impermanent. Take with regard to, say, a handsome young man, a gorgeous lady. Now that is a sensual object. Is it going to last in that way forever? No. Gradually, that form will age and deteriorate and lose in a beautiful, say, in a person, be it a male or female, all 5 codes of sensual pleasures are there. But are they permanent? No, it's impermanent. So they gradually decline and lose these qualities, the 5 aspects. But we do not see this. Why? We don't use our wisdom to see this. And we delight in the momentary pleasure, appeal that we find in that object of sensual pleasure. And we get attached to that. That is why Buddha said, only the wise, seeing this impermanent, the changing nature, give up the desire for these sensual pleasures. Now think, if you offer an arahant the most delicious food in this world, would he get attached to that? No. Why? He has no desire for sensual pleasures. He has eradicated the desire for sensual pleasures. If you are given something edible, something you find very delicious, don't you get attached the moment you eat it? Then you might find out, want to cook it for yourself, to find out the recipe. If it is something bought from hotel, you would want to know the place. Where can I eat? Where did you order this from? Likewise. Why? Because the desire is there. Desire for sensual pleasure is there. Because we don't realize the impermanence in those sensual pleasures. We get attached to them. That is the difference. But in the case of an arahant, that problem is not there. Because when Arahant Mahakassapa went for Pindapata, deities from the Devas, God Sakka, in the guise of, with his wife, came in the guise of old man and old lady and offered divine food. He accepted them with indifference, like. And also in the case when a sick person, a leper, offered some rice, when he offered, along because he was sick, one finger broke and fell into the alms bowl. Still, the same meal, just as he ate the divine food, he sat by the side and took that meal as well. How is that? Because they are not moved. They are unshaken by the 5 codes of sensual pleasure. They are not looking to delight in the codes of sensual pleasure. So they can have the same things, whether it's good or bad, the same food with indifference. That is the nature of arahants. But we always seek these pleasures because we have not realized the reality. That is why Buddha encourages us with regard to these things, sensual pleasures, feeling, and all those things we discuss in the sutta, to see their reality as they really are. Okay, that's what we try to understand from this sutta. So Buddha also gave us various similes, no? To understand the nature of to see the danger of sensual pleasures. Can anyone remember the similes Buddha gave? The similes with regard to sensual pleasures?
Bhante, I think the first one is a piece of meat, Bhante.
Yeah, piece of meat on a cutting block, no? So like on a cutting block, say a log, you keep piece of, and throughout the day you cut meat, no? On a meat station. But then at the end of the day, there is the log and the knife. That's all. Likewise, in our life, we experience so many sensual pleasure, but there is nothing for you to show at the moment. At this given moment, that's all thing of the past. Isn't that so? And Buddha said these sensual pleasures are like a dream. You see certain things in the dream that you have never experienced in life, in reality. And in the dream, you enjoy this. And you wake up, it's all gone. Buddha said that's how it's like that. Our life, we enjoy sensual pleasures. We are attached to them. We live with them. We indulge in them. But the moment we die, that's all gone. So think there is a tornado, you are hit by a tornado, a hurricane, or forest fire, whatever. In a moment, in a day, everything you have earned, you find pleasing and desirable, are lost. Like a dream. You have to leave them behind. You lose out on them. And Buddha said, it is the sensual pleasures are like fruits on a tree, edible fruits on a tree. The person goes into forest and he sees a certain tree with a lot of fruits. So he's hungry, he gets onto the tree and he's plucking fruits and eating. Another person who wants come to the woods, he also wants to eat the same fruit, but he can't climb trees. What does he do? He takes an axe, try to chop down the tree. So the person on the tree, if he has to save his life, what should he do? He has to give up his desire for the fruits that he's eating. He has to give that up, get down from that tree and save his life. That is what we are on the tree. We are attached to these sensual pleasures. Are we ready to give up? If we are not, we are in danger. That's another thing. And Buddha says it is like sensual pleasures are like something like this. Say a person is dragged by others to a charcoal pit, a burning charcoal pit. So would he willingly go and jump into the charcoal pit? Okay, take me there. No. He will try to run away, try to escape somehow. In that way, Buddha said, you try to escape from sensual pleasures because it is something that is going to bring you a lot of harm. Just as what would happen when you are dragged into a charcoal pit. You will burn to death or suffer a lot. So you have to see sensual pleasures as charcoal, burning charcoal. Any other similes? Do you remember?
But there's another one, a piece of meat carried by an eagle and
yes, yeah. Tell it all of it. So the meat is carried by an eagle. It's flying away. What happens there?
And there are some other eagles come and try to grab it from.
Yeah. So grab means that they would take on that eagle, no, attack it. So if it want to save its life, then it has to let go of that piece of meat. That piece of meat is like the sensual pleasures, and we are the eagle that is holding on to that. So if you want to save our life, if you want to escape suffering, we have to give up the desire. That's what the simile means. And also Buddha said there's another simile. You come across these similes if you want to read in the Pautali Sutta, okay? You can read leisurely. So in that sutta, there's another simile where Buddha says it is like if a person, he borrows garments. He borrows a garment and maybe even a vehicle, as I remember. And then he goes on an errand, goes to the town. And the owner from whom he have borrowed these things, when he's going in the town, go and ask him, give me my clothes, give me my chariot. So then he has to give them up because he is not the owner. He has borrowed them temporarily. So likewise, we never know when we will have to give up this sensual presence because life is impermanent, because we are all going to die at any moment. We never know when. So we have to be very We have to think wisely with regard to these things. That is why Buddha said the wise ones, even through similes, they understand. That is why Buddha used these beautiful similes to make us understand. Because if you are wise, even through the similes, you can understand the reality of these things. And there's another simile, where a person takes a torch. Torch in the means a grass torch where it is lit, so it's a fire. At the end, there's a fire. So when you are going against the wind, those days they didn't have electric torch or whatever the things we have the time of the Buddha. So they had grass torches. Then you take that, and when you go against the wind, what happened? Because you are holding onto that torch, you
Flame
burn
comes
your own hand, your body. So likewise, if you don't want that to happen, then what you should do? You have to give up the torch. So the torch is like the burning torch, sensual pleasures are such. So in this way, you have to understand that it is a danger. We only think of the gratification of these things now. We don't see the danger, so therefore we can't escape from it. So we have to focus on the danger because it is there. It's just that we fail to see it. We have to try to see it with wisdom. That is why we learn these teachings of the Buddha. So now we know what sensual pleasures are. Then Buddha says, what bhikkhu is the source and origin of sensual pleasures? Then Buddha gives the answer. Contact is the source and origin. Contact. Because we see these forms, sounds, tastes, smells, tangibles, these things we experience through what? Contact. That is the origin. So Buddha, with regard to contact, he gave a beautiful simile, Contact is like a flayed cow. There's no escape from contact. It's going to be there. When a cow is flayed and it is in the open air, like open area, then insects come and bite it. If it leans against a tree, the insects on the tree will bite it. Because it's a flayed cow. The skin is not there to protect it. Exposed, open to the environment. If it dives into the water, the insects or whatever creatures are in the water, fish or whatever, they will bite them. Likewise, you can't escape from contact. So that means you're always exposed to what? Sensual pleasures. Mindfully, with wisdom only you can, by seeing the impermanent nature of these sensual pleasures, that you, by giving up the desire, through wisdom only you can escape. Because contact is going to be there. Contact is the origin of sensual pleasures. It is through contact we experience. When contact ceases, that chord of sensual pleasure ceases. You are listening to a beautiful song, say on the record player, whatever you are using for that, okay? Then at once it breaks down. No more contact. That chord of sensual pleasure is gone, just like that. Or your ear, something happened to ear. Ear is not permanent, no? Something like the ear fails. You can lose your eyesight any moment. Then you can't see anything. So that chord of sensual pleasures are gone, just like that. Because eye contact is no longer there. So contact has to be there for you to experience sensual pleasures. When contact ceases, then sensual pleasures cease. And what is the diversity of sensual pleasures? There's a diversity, Buddha says. Diversity is sensual desire for form is one thing. Sensual desire for sounds is another. Sensual desire for smells, still another. Sensual desire for taste, still another. And sensual desire for tactile objects, for touch, is still another. This is called the diversity of sensual pleasure. So nature, form, sound, taste, smells, tangibles are different. So these each chord are different from each other, therefore diverse. That is the diversity of sensual pleasures. And what is the result of sensual pleasures? There are the results. Buddha says, one produces an individual existence that corresponds with whatever sensual pleasures one desires, and which may be the consequences either of merit or demerit. This is called the result of sensual pleasures. That means it brings about a rebirth, good or bad. That means when you engage, you experience or indulge in the sensual pleasures, these 5 chords of sensual pleasures, then in your life, because we are in a sensual realm and being lay people, you are more so engaged in sensual pleasures, indulge in sensual pleasures. And to experience sensual pleasures, people do both good and bad, don't we? Some people, for that matter, they kill because they have somehow want to earn a living, somehow want to guard their sensual pleasures. They kill, they steal, they engage in sexual misconduct. Why? For sensual pleasures. They lie. They take intoxicating drinks and drugs. They speak divisively. They do all this for what? To indulge in sensual pleasures. By good or bad means, they indulge in sensual pleasures. There's drug trafficking. Why? Easy money. Slave trade. Again. Why? Because of sensual pleasures. So these things they do in life to experience the 5 chords of sensual pleasures, the 5 objects of sensual pleasures. They create karma that bring about a corresponding rebirth, good or bad, according to what they do, the things they do. A person can engage in good things because he, after listening to teachings of the Buddha, he understand for himself, okay, if you practice dana, you can reap the benefits of dana in this life. That means in this very life, your business will rise. That is also with regard to sensual pleasures. You want to live a life with good income. Then you live a virtuous life in according to Dharma with that idea in mind. So that is enjoying sensual pleasures in a good way. Thinking of a good return. You read the Vimanavattu and you hear these devas have been born in the heavenly worlds and they experience all these sensual pleasures over there which are far more superior to than what you find in the human world. And thinking of that, looking for a rebirth in the heavenly worlds, you live a virtuous life. You give dana, you attend to the monks, you venerate the stupas and bodhi trees. Then you create karma because of sensual pleasures. You want to experience sensual pleasures in the heavenly world. So that is good karma, bringing you a good rebirth in the heavenly worlds. So those are the good and bad results of sensual pleasures, said the Buddha. Is that clear? There are both good and bad results. That means it creates a corresponding rebirth for each individual according to the karma they have done, whether it's good or bad. So we know if a person say engaging in the Apaya Sangathanika Sutta, it says, like if you engage in killing living beings, then you are born. When you are again, you come to this life, what happens? After you are born in the hell world, then when you come to the human world, the residue of the karma comes into effect. And you don't have long life. If you have engaged in sexual misconduct, you will not have love. You can't lead a good family life. You will have a lot of enemies. Likewise, there will not be happiness in a family life. Why? That karma that you created, that will bear fruit and you will have to suffer. And also, if you are a person who engage in idle chatter, then what Buddha said? Then people will not believe your words because you are used to speech in a wrong way, in a valueless way. So no one values your word. See how karma works? If you are a person who has lied in the past a lot, then when you lie, people fall into trouble. People are misled by your lies. Then what happens? When you are born as a human, then you are accused of wrongdoings, that things you did not commit. You are falsely accused. Why? You have lied in the past. Likewise, there are other consequences. So if you engage, like if you consume liquor, drugs, so you're losing your Well, you are deriving pleasure from what? Being mindful or losing your mindfulness. You are deriving pleasure from losing your mindfulness, giving up your mindfulness. Then what happens? You will not be born with a good mind. That means you lose your mind. That means you become a person who is mentally retarded. You will not have a good sound mind. This is karma. Okay, that's karma created because of engaging in sensual pleasures in a wrong way. So then Buddha said, and what is the sensual pleasures? What is the cessation of sensual pleasures? What do you think is the cessation of sensual pleasures? How did yes, Tilang?
Noble Eightfold Path.
No, that is actually the way leading to the cessation.
Oh,
They say how they cease sensual pleasure. How did they arise? Sensual pleasures arose with contact. When contact ceases, then sensual pleasures would cease. Buddha says, with the cessation of contact, there is cessation of sensual pleasures. How can you achieve cessation of sensual pleasures? This Noble Eightfold Path is the way leading to the cessation of sensual pleasures. Namely, right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. Okay? So in this way, Buddha said, when bhikkhus, a noble disciple, thus understand sensual pleasures, the source and origin of sensual pleasures, the diversity of sensual pleasures, the result of sensual pleasures, the cessation of sensual pleasures, the way leading to the cessation of sensual pleasures, he realizes this penetrative spiritual life to be the cessation of sensual pleasures. He realized, if I practice this spiritual life, then I can experience the cessation of sensual pleasures. Okay, we discuss one aspect. We have time, no? Okay. So next, second is when it was said, feelings should be understood. The origin of feelings should be understood. Then the diversity of feelings should be understood. The result of feelings should be understood. The cessation of feelings should be understood. The path leading to the cessation of feelings should be understood. What was said? What was the meaning behind that? Then Buddha explains. There are bhikkhus, 3 types of feelings. Anyone? What are the 3 types of feelings? Pleasant feelings, or painful feelings,
Happy, sad, and neutral.
happy, sad, and neutral. There are pleasant, painful, and neutral means neither painful or nor pleasant feelings. Okay, 3 types of feelings. Then Buddha said, so is this feeling, is it permanent or impermanent? This pleasant feeling and the painful feeling and neutral feeling?
Impermanent.
Why are they impermanent? Feeling? Because they are born of what? Because Buddha says, and what is the source and origin of feelings? Contact.
Contact.
Is contact permanent or impermanent? Contact is impermanent. Where does contact arise?
Faculties.
Huh?
Faculties.
Sorry?
I.
In the 6 sense bases, eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and mind, there contact arises. So are the 6 senses permanent or impermanent?
Impermanent.
They are impermanent. So if the senses are impermanent, then will contact be permanent? No, contact is impermanent. If contact is impermanent, will feeling be permanent? No. Feeling is born of contact. So therefore feeling is also impermanent. So that is why I say now, think on your right side, there's a dead body. Okay. On your left side, there is a person, I think, which is a very attractive person on your left side. So you turn to the left, what happens? Then you're happy. Why? Present contact. You turn to the right, instantly what happens? It's a unpleasant, painful feeling. Then what happened? Instantly contact change. So this happens every moment. Every passing moment this happens. Contact changes, feeling changes. Present, painful, and neutral feelings arise and cease. But because we are not mindful, we cannot see this happening. Only if we develop mindfulness, then we can see the arising and cessation of contact. Feeling, arising and cessation of feeling can be seen. And this nature you can see with wisdom. So in this, just by the change in the direction you are looking, you see that impermanence, like it constantly changes. That is a Buddha gave the simile of the water bubble, no? Can anyone recall the film?
Hello, Janakaya. Oh, Janakaya.
What is simile?
Oh.
Water bubble, the simile of the water bubble. Anyone? Minupa, do you remember it? Simile of the water bubble? That is the simile.
So I'm the answer.
Uh-huh.
Is it like a water bubble on like a plate of grass? Like
No, that's regard to death. Your life is like water, a bead of water on a blade of grass. It momentarily it can fall, no? So its life is like that. Anytime you can die. That's the simile. Here it is like, say, in a rainy day, you see there are pools of water. It give a pool of water, be it a lake or a pond. When it rains, water drops. When it hits the water, water bubbles arise and they cease. They arise and break. They appear and disappear. So likewise, contact arises and ceases instantly, again and again. So mindfully you have to observe, then you see how contacts change. Mindfulness has to be there. So the origin, the source of feeling is contact, okay? And what is the diversity of feeling? The diversity we have to understand. There is worldly present feeling. There is spiritual present feeling. There is worldly painful feeling. There is spiritual painful feeling. There is worldly neither painful nor present feeling. That is worldly neutral feeling. There is spiritual neutral feeling. This is called the diversity of feelings. Okay. So what is worldly present feeling? Worldly present feelings. The feelings you normally in your day-to-day life experience present. There are worldly present feelings. Then what are the spiritual present feelings? Can someone say what are the spiritual present feelings?
When we see a chaitya or a statue, Buddha statue, there are some feelings like.
Very good. When you see a Bodhi tree, maybe a Buddha statue, that's a good present feeling for you. Then the feelings you have when you give dana, by living a virtuous life, by practicing samadhi, concentration, you feel present feelings. These are what? Spiritual present feelings. Then there is worldly painful feelings that you experience painful feelings now every day. So that is worldly painful feeling. Then there is spiritual painful feeling. What is spiritual painful feeling? Spiritual painful feeling. Spiritual painful feeling is, say, you want to meditate, but you find it difficult, meditation. Then are you happy or unhappy?
Unhappy.
Unhappy. So that is not a pleasant feeling. That is the spiritual painful feeling because you are worried and unhappy because you can't meditate properly. Then what else? You want to live a virtuous life, but you find it difficult to keep the precepts. Then again you are unhappy because of that. Then spiritual painful feeling that can happen. So in this way, you have to understand spiritual painful feeling. Then there is worldly neutral feeling. Neutral feelings you experience in the normal life. If it's not pleasant, unpleasant, then it's neutral. They also arise and cease. Then there are the spiritual neutral feelings. What is that? Spiritual neutral feelings is when you practice jhana and achieve the fourth jhana, you develop equanimity, upekkha. So that is a spiritual neutral feeling. So in this way, you have to understand the diversity of feelings. Okay. So with regard to feeling, then again we have to understand what. Then we have to again understand results of feeling. What are results of feeling? One produces an individual existence that corresponds with whatever feelings one experiences, and which may be the consequence either of merit or demerit. This is called the result of feelings. So whatever you feel, accordingly, there will be a rebirth as a result of that feeling. It can be something you experience, you can feel and experience good and bad things. Then if you correct in that merits, then you are born in a good destination. If you correct demerit, then you are born in a bad destination. Because to feel good things, pleasant things, you do bad things. People do bad things to experience pleasant feelings. Just as we discussed before, you engage in killing living beings, stealing, sexual misconduct, all because of what? To experience pleasant feelings. But the method by which you do that is bad. So then you create demerits, then you are reborn in a bad destination. And also you can do good deeds. You can practice the Dharma, you can meditate, live a virtual life, again to experience good pleasant feelings, to ward off suffering. Then again it creates also a rebirth in a good or bad destination. So in this way you have to understand the results of feelings. Then Buddha says, what is the cessation of feelings? How did feeling arise? Feeling also arise because of contact. So therefore, when contact ceases, feeling also ceases. With the cessation of contact, there is cessation of feelings. This Noble Eightfold Path is the way leading to the cessation of feelings. Then again, the solution is what? We have to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. There is no other solution. Right? You have to practice what? Right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, right concentration. Because only the Noble Eightfold Path lead to the cessation of feelings. So this is what it would mean when he said that feelings should be understood. The origin of feelings should be understood. The result, the diversity of feelings should be understood. The results of feelings should be understood. The cessation of feelings should be understood. The path leading to cessation of feelings should be understood. Then next Buddha said, when it was said, perception should be understood. The way leading to the cessation of perception should likewise, with regard to the perception, what do we have to realize? Can someone say the 6 factors? What do we have to realize with regard to perception? Can't anyone say?
Perception needs to be understood.
Huh?
Perception needs to be understood.
Perception should be understood, yes.
Then the origin of perception should be understood.
Okay.
Then the diversity of perception should be understood. Then the result of perception should be understood. Then the cessation of perception should be understood. Then the result 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 of perception should be understood. Then the result
Yes.
And then the path leading to the cessation of perception should be understood.
Very good, very good. So these are the 6 things we have to understand or realize. Understand is rather, we have to realize, okay? Understanding is rather vague. It's not powerful enough. You have to have a realization. That means realize with wisdom, okay? So first, with regard to perception, there are, Buddha said, because there are 6 perceptions. What do you perceive? Perception of forms, perception of sounds, perception of smells, perception of taste, perception of tangibles, perception of mental phenomena. Those are the 6 types of perception. Okay? So we perceive what? Forms, sounds, taste, smells, taste, tangibles, mental phenomena. These are the things we perceive in life. So these are the 6 kind of perception. That is easy to understand, no? So the problem is we perceive these things in a wrong way. That is where the problem lies. So that is why Buddha said the perception is like the mirage. So what is a mirage? Is it a reality or an illusion? Huh?
Illusion.
It is an illusion. No? That is why in normal usage we say, no, when there is an unrealistic hope or wish that cannot be achieved, we say it's a mirage. No? Maybe it's for a person, if he's not good at passing exams, he would say like it's a mirage that he would pass the exam. Why? It is something that is very unlikely. It is unrealistic hope or wish for certain things to happen. So that is why then that means it's not the reality. It's far from the reality. And we experience mirages like, say, in a desert or a road, when the desert or the road is heated, then hot air rises, the sun rays are reflected, and it creates an illusion as if there is a water pool there. So likewise, it's not the reality, it's an illusion. So we also are victims of this illusion, this mirage, which is what? Perception. That we do not perceive the reality of these things we perceive. What are things we perceive? Forms, sounds, smells, tangibles, perception, and mind objects. We fail to see the reality of these things we perceive. Okay? So how do we perceive these things? Our perception is distorted. Okay? So we have a distorted perception of these things. So we do not share the reality of these things. We perceive these impermanent things as permanent. We perceive things that cause us suffering as things that brings us happiness. Things that are non-self, we perceive as self. Things that's repulsive, we perceive as what? Attractive. So this is the fourfold distortion we have with regard to all the things we perceive. That is there. So that is the illusion. That's the mirage. We can't see the reality. We have failed to see the reality. So as long as we see this reality, we can't escape from suffering. That is why it's a mirage is an illusion, Buddha said. How this distorted perception changes when you become stream-entered, what happens? This changes. The impermanent you see as impermanent. Suffering, things that bring suffering, you see things as being suffering. And things that are actually non-self, you see them to be non-self. Things repulsive, you see them as they really are, as repulsive. When you become a stream-entered. That is why then you are free of the 4 bad destinations. Because we for once you see the reality of life. Then your perception is no longer distorted. Because with regard to the Arahants, they can perceive anything in whatever they want. We are enslaved by perception. But in contrast, the Arahants, they are the masters of perception. They have mastered perception. Whereas we are enslaved by perception. Once you have mastered perception, Buddha says, even the foul things, repulsive things, you can see as attractive. Even the attractive you can see as attractive. You can see them as attractive as they really are. Or even the repulsive things you can see as things that are attractive. That is why Arahant Mahakasyapa, when that leper, he offered that food, then the finger fell. He was not repulsed. Why? Even the repulsive he can see as attractive. We say in Sinhala, Sanya Vasi Prapta. That means they are in control. They have mastered perception because they have realized the true nature of perception. So now in this way, now there's a nice incident where with regard to the, you understand how perception can distort a person's view. You know, Sivali, Arahant Sivali, his mother was Suppavasa. She was a stream entered. And when she was pregnant with Sivali, sign answer, when he was in his life, when he was pregnant, when his mother was pregnant with him, Suppavasa carried that baby for 7 years because of past karma. 7 years she carried the baby, and she was in labor pain because she could not deliver the child for 7 days. See how much suffering. But all the time she would say, this is what she said aloud, how fortunate am I to go for refuge to the Buddha, because Buddha became a Samma Sambuddha to free us from this suffering. He freed himself from suffering, this suffering that I am experiencing, because he was, think of labor pain, no? It is the most painful experience a person can have. So now she was seeing labor pain for 7 days on, because he could not deliver the baby. So excruciating pain she was feeling. But even then, she was thinking of the qualities of the Buddha. Buddha became a Sambhava Buddha and freed himself from this suffering that I am experiencing like at this moment, this sort of suffering. And Buddha also taught us the Dharma that help us to free ourselves from this suffering. And the disciples of the Buddha, the Arahats, they also freed from this suffering. So because she is a stream entered, she always contemplated on the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. And her husband also was stream entered, went to the Buddha and said, my wife is in pain. For 7 years she carried the baby, and 7 days long now she is in pain. So Buddha blessed her. And the moment Buddha blessed her, she delivered the baby, and they were so very happy. They wanted to give dana for 7 days. And they offered dana to Buddha and the order of monks. And now she was born, and he could walk the day he was born. Just like the Buddha did. Prince Siddhartha, he could walk the day he was born. Because he was in the womb for 7 years, so he was grown. Well grown. So he walked the day he was born. And he also was going here and there talking to monks on the day of the dana. And he was talking to Venerable Arahant Sariputta. And Arahant Sariputta says, how are you doing? Then he said, what is there to be said? I suffered so much, like I was in a black hole for so many years. So what happiness is there in this life? So Suppavasa saw her young newborn child talking to the marshal of the Dhamma, Arahant Sariputta. She was so happy and delighted. Buddha saw her delighting in seeing her son talking to Sariputta. Buddha saw this and said, Suppavasa, would you like to have 7 sons like this? She said, yes. How nice would that be? Then Buddha uttered this nice word. Buddha said, Asatang Satu Rupena, which means the unpleasant in a pleasant form comes to us. Asatang Satu Rupena. The bitter things comes as sweet. Piya Rupena Appiya. The unlovely in the guise of lovely form comes to us. Dukkang Sukhasa Rupena. The painful in the form of pleasure comes to us. Pamatta Mativattati. Overcome the heedless one. And the heedless one is overrun by this. Why? They are tricked. They are tricked into seeing the bitter things as sweet. the unpleasant as pleasant, the unlovely things as lovely, the painful things as things that bring pleasure. She forgot this child. See how she suffered because of her, before this child. For 7 years and 7 days she suffered. Instantly, because of the gratification, she forgot all that. But the moment the Buddha uttered this verse, mindfulness arose in her. Because he was a stream-entered, wisdom arose with mindfulness. And then and there, she said, I don't want any other child like this. She understood the reality. Why? Because her perception is not distorted like ours. We would not come to our senses if this was told to us. A person who has not realized the Dhamma, seeing the reality of perception. A person with distorted perception cannot at once in this way realize the reality. Because she's got that wisdom, she could understand the meaning of the Buddha's words. So in this way, we have to understand the perception is what? A mirage, illusion. And what is the diversity of perception? The perception of form is one thing. The perception of sound is another. The perception of orders is another. The perception of taste.
No, but that Bante, Shasanta Bante is muted.
Did that happen?
I hear my sound also.
How long I was muted?
Just now, Bante.
Okay. What is the diversity of perception? Diversity of perception we discussed now. Okay, this is different. The forms, feelings, forms, sound, taste, tangibles. Likewise, these are each different. Each perception is different. Okay, and what is the result of perception? There is a result of perception, and Buddha says, I say that perceptions result in expression. In whatever way one perceives something, in just that way one expresses oneself. I repeat that. I say that perceptions result in expression. In whatever way one perceives something, in just that way one expresses oneself. I was percipient of such and such. This is called the result of perception. Simply that means we express in the way we perceive. That means our expression changes with our perception. And this is how we have to understand. Like say, now we perceive things, no? And that when the way we perceive things change, then our expressions also change accordingly. Now, do you talk the same way to a child as you do to an adult? Do you use the same language and jargon? No, when we talk to childs, we don't ask. There's a certain words no you use when you ask the child whether you have eaten, whether you have drank water. No? What are the words you use? Like in Sinhala, like there's things, no? So likewise, there are certain jargon, the words even change. The words we use for children, we don't use when we talk to adults. Why? We perceive them as children. And we perceive them as adults and we talk accordingly. We do a Dhamma class for children and we do one for adults. We don't do this, we change it, no? To shoot them. Why? Our perception has changed. These are adults. These are children. And here now my perception is muddled because I have children, I see children, and I have adults also. But it's different, like it's difficult to focus in that, okay? So normally in the children program, then your perception is children, then you change accordingly, you express accordingly. That's what the diversity is, okay? And now say there is a lay person, among you, someone ordained, okay? Some boy say, someone orders. Now you talk him in the same manner and say, Minupa orders as a monk. Now how do you attract with associate with Minupa? You won't call him Minupa. He has a different name. You would then call him Bante. You won't call him Ayya. No? Likewise, it change. Why? Your perception of that person change. When perception change, expression changes. That is what is meant here. Okay. Then say you see a friend. Then there is a way you interact with the friend. Do you interact with enemies in the same way? No. And say like you have a lover. Okay. Then you are broken. You break up with him or her. Then do you associate with that person in the same way? No. Before you saw all the good qualities in him or her. Now you see all the bad qualities. Why? Your perception change after the breakup. That is what? That is the result of perception. Expression changes. That is the result. When perception change, the expressions change. So think of yourself when you mature with age, your thoughts, the way you think of life, the way you think of things, the things you liked as a child, you don't like them now. Your thoughts, your intentions as a child is different in your youth. It will be much different in your adult age. Likewise, perception change and expressions, perception and expression change. Then say a person change his religion. She's like say Buddhist, then she goes like become a Catholic or some other religion. Then sometimes people change their names, change the way they live. Then they change the way they, because there's another teaching, no? The whole lifestyle changes with regard to what? When their perception change, the expressions change. So if that is the case in this life, now you are human. If you are born as a ghost, what happens? Now you perceive food as the things you are. There are certain things you perceive as food now. Rice, curry, yogurt, fruits, whatever. Now you are a ghost. Now what do you perceive as food? Saliva, excrement. These things. Why? Perception change and expressions change. So this you have to understand. This is the result of perception. And what is the cessation of perception? Because perception is also born of contact. When contact ceases, perception ceases. Okay? That you have to understand. This Noble Eightfold Path is the way leading to the cessation of perception. So the solution is to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. So it is only, we are fortunate that we learn the teachings of the Buddha, the Noble Eightfold Path, so we can practice it. Not everyone has this opportunity. You have to keep that in mind. It's a very rare opportunity that you have got to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. So in this way, a noble disciple should realize these things with regard to perception. Next fact is, when it was said the tense should be understood, the way leading to the cessation of the tense should be understood. For what reason was this said? So that we have, with regard to tense, you have to again realize the 6 factors. Tense should be understood. Their origin has to be realized. Then their diversity has to be realized. Their results has to be realized. Their cessation and the way leading to the cessation of tense has to be realized. All these 6 factors has to be realized with regard to tense. So then Buddha first explains what are tense. There are because these 3 types of tense. The tense of sensuality, the taint of existence, and the taint of ignorance. Kamastava, bhavastava, avijjastava. Taints of sensual pleasures, taints of existence, taints of ignorance. What are kamastava, or taints of sensuality? So that means within our mind, in our mind, deep-seated, there are the nature that we are drawn. There are certain defilements that we are drawn to sensual pleasures. These are called taints of sensuality, asava, kamastava, that are deep-seated in our mind, so that we are drawn to sensual pleasures. So like say, a person comes to here from the Brahma world. A person practices Arupa Dhyana and is born in the Brahma world. So in the Brahma world, there are no, that's a world devoid of sensual pleasures. There you dwell in a state of jhana experience. and then you pass away, and then again you are reborn as a human in the human world. And as a child, gradually when you mature, what happens? The taints are there. Taints of sensuality are there. They gradually surface. And then you are drawn to sensual pleasures. Food and the things, the toys and the things the kid loves. And gradually with maturity, they surface. Because they are underlying, that is there. Deep seated in the mind, the taints are there. Taints of sensuality. So that then taints of sensuality, taints of existence is, now that is what takes us to existence. Because we exist because the taints of existence are there. If Bhavasrava is no longer within us, there is no rebirth. Then taints of ignorance. It is because of ignorance actually that all the other taints exist. Taints of ignorance, avijjasrava. So, you know the case where in the, say, the Kokalika, there was a monk. He was the son of a lord who ordained and became a monk, Kokalika. So Kokalika, he was living in his temple, monastery. And one day, Venerable Arahant Sariputta and Moggallana came to that monastery with a retinue of monks. But he didn't tell the people of the village, thinking, or then they would, if they got to know that Venerable Arahant Sariputta and Moggallana come here, they would always come and praise and talk to them, and I will lose my place. They would, all the praise and gain will be gone to those Arahants because they are the foremost disciples. So he didn't tell anyone. They said some new monks have come, offer dana to them. That's all he said. But the day before the monks, Venerable Arahant and Sariputta, were about to leave, he then informed the village people. Said, you are very unfortunate people that you didn't offer anything. Arahant Sariputta and Moggallana was here for days. You didn't offer anything. Now at least go and offer them some pirikara, some requisites. Because his plan was to take all that to himself. He thought they would leave it behind. Then I can have that too. So the village people, they came and offered many requisites for the monks. So Arahant Sariputta and Moggallana, they thought, it seems like they get requisites here in abundance because they afford a lot, no? So we should take some with us so we can share it with other monks. They all the pirikara, the requisites they received, they took them with them and they left. Arahant Sariputta, Moggallana, other monks, they took them with them. Took the requisites. So he was so very angry and frustrated. And he went to the Buddha and complained, Arahant Sariputta and Moggallana are very evil, very bad monks. They have very lowly desires for these requisites. They took all the requisites with them. Likewise, he was angry. Buddha said, don't say that. That is wrong what you say. They are not such monks. They are very good monks. So do not have a bad state of mind towards them. Do not have angry thoughts towards them. But he didn't listen. He said, I love the Buddha, but I don't care for them. That's what he said. So does he have confidence in the Buddha at least? No. He was not ready to listen. And he felt sick. And that same day, because of that karma, he died and he was born in the Paduma hell. So what dragged that person to the Paduma hell? His taints of sensual pleasure, the desire for sensual pleasure, taints of sensuality, taints of existence, taints of ignorance, not knowing the reality of life, dragged him to the Paduma hell. It is said, monk asked the Buddha how long it is, the lifespan in that hell. Buddha said, you can't say this much, this 100,000, these millions. You can't give a number. And in that sutta, Buddha has a long description to explain how that you have to read it, like there are a lot to remember certain words. This cell is this much and this cell is that much. Like us, there's a calculation going on there. You have to read the sutta. I don't remember the content. So it's Kokalika Sutta, you can read. And in that way, you can't give a number to the years you have to suffer in that hell. So he was born there because of what? Taints of sensuality. So the taints took him there. And what is the source and origin of the taints? Why do taints exist in us? Ignorance is the origin. As long as there's ignorance. What is ignorance actually? What is ignorance? Someone?
Not knowing the Four Noble Truths.
Yeah, not knowing there's a noble truth of suffering, not knowing the cause of suffering, cessation of suffering, not knowing the path leading to cessation of suffering. That is ignorance, avidya. So how do you actually see the taints? Okay, how do you see these taints? So I will, have you read the Acharya Manusa book? Have you? How many? Okay, so this is an excerpt from the Acharya Manusa book, okay, of the English translation. At the moment I'm translating this book into English at the request of Lok Saying answer. So you can read it once it's fully translated. From that I will read an excerpt of the taints, okay, nice excerpt, how Buddha, when he realized enlightenment, how he saw the taints. It's very nice, okay, I read, you listen. So subtopic here is gaining the knowledge of the destruction of the taints in the last watch of the night. Okay, Buddha said, when my concentrated mind was thus purified, bright, unblemished, rid of imperfection, malleable, veiled, steady, and attained to imperturbability, I directed to knowledge of the destruction of the taints, says the Buddha. Then I realized as it actually is, this is suffering. I realized as it actually is, this is the origin of suffering. I realized as it actually is, this is the cessation of suffering. I realized as it actually is, this is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. Then Buddha says, I realized as it actually is, there are the taints. I realized as it actually is, this is the origin of the taints. I realized as it actually is, this is the cessation of taints. I realized as it actually is, this is the way leading to the cessation of taints. So Buddha realized all that and taught us, okay, you have to also realize the same things to free yourself from suffering. Buddha is the first one who freed his mind from the taints. Then it is said, then nice simile is given. Okay, Buddha gives a nice simile here. Just as if there were a lake on a mountain top, clear, limpid, and undisturbed, so that a man with good sight standing on the bank could see shells, gravel, and pebbles, and also shoals of fish swimming about and resting. Okay, then Lokasanga explains, okay. Seeing reality by realizing the truth is something like this. When I knew and saw thus, now this is the excerpt from the Sutta again, okay. When I knew and saw thus, my mind was liberated from the taints of sensual desire, from the taints of existence, and from the taints of ignorance. When it was liberated, there came the knowledge, it is liberated. I directly know birth is destroyed. The spiritual life has been lived. What had to be done to attain Nibbana has been done. There is nothing more to be done to realize truth. In this way, in the last watch of the night, by getting asavakka jnana, the knowledge that the taints have been destroyed, Buddha attained enlightenment. Then after that, Lokasayana in this way explains, the taints, asava, are deep-seated form of defilements born of ignorance and nourished by craving. That means the taints are a deep-seated form of defilements born of ignorance and nourished by craving. The Buddha described in a clear simile how he saw the taints with his wisdom. On the top of a mountain, there is a lake with clear water. The lake's water is so pure that one can see everything on the bottom very clearly. That is how the Blessed One saw the taints lying deep-seated in the mind. Quite remarkable. Because he saw in that way, the Blessed One was able to free himself from the taints. Therefore, he was able to contemplate wisely on the principle of cause and effect, and on the three characteristics of impermanence, suffering, and non-self, in such a way that gave rise to knowledge of things as they really are. That is what? Yatha Bhuta Jnana. That is how the Buddha achieved enlightenment in the last watch of the night. When he attained in the first watch of the night, what did he attain? Ubbe Nivanusanusati Jnane, the knowledge of recollecting the manifold past lives. Then Chutupapata Jnane, the knowledge of seeing the passing away and rebirth of beings. Then in the last watch he realized Asavakka Jnana, knowledge of destruction of the taints. So, and what is the diversity of the taints? Diversity of taints. Buddha says there are taints leading to hell. There are taints leading to the animal realm. There are taints leading to the realm of afflicted spirits. That's the ghosts. There are taints leading to the human world. There are taints leading to the Deva world. This is called the diversity of the taints. So it is the taints that drag us to the heaven, to the ghost world, to the human world, the animal world, hell world. Kokalika was dragged to Padumahel with what? The taints dragged him there. We were drawn to the human world in this life, dragged here by what? Taints. Okay. And what? So that is the diversity of the taints. Okay. And what is the result of the taints? One immersed in ignorance produces a corresponding individual existence, which may be the consequence either of merit or demerit. This is called the result of the taints. That means a person with taints. That means a person with ignorance. Such a person has taints, and therefore, when he do actions, good or bad, accordingly, then he fares on, passes on. What into what? Another birth. Okay, that is the result of taints. And what is the cessation of the taints? How the taints cease? How taints arise?
Because of ignorance, Bhante.
Ignorance taints arise. When ignorance is no longer there, then taints cease. That is a Buddha said, it said like here, Agivesana, in the Sissut, he tells to Agivesana, this is for the third true knowledge attained by me in the last of the watch of the night. Ignorance was banished regarding the nature of life. True knowledge arose, darkness was banished and light arose, as happens in one who abides diligent with effort that suppresses the defilements, devoid of expectation for life. But Agivesana, even such present feeling that arose in me did not overwhelm my mind. In this way, Buddha achieved enlightenment, having destroyed all the taints. So, cessation of taints come with ignorance, and for that to be achieved, you have to practice again what? The Noble Eightfold Path. That is the way leading to the cessation of suffering. So, Buddha says here, when bhikkhus, a noble disciple, in this way understand the taints, the source and origin of the taints, the diversity of the taints, the result of the taints, the cessation and the way leading to the cessation of the taints, he understands these penetrative spiritual lives to be the cessation of the taints. There is no other way to, but to live the spiritual life shown by the Buddha. It is by that that you achieve cessation of the taints. Next is, when it was said karma should be realized, the origin of karma should be realized. The diversity of karma should be realized. The cessation and the way leading to the cessation of karma should be realized. What was the meaning behind that? Buddha then explains first what is karma. It is volition because that I call karma. For having willed one acts by body, speech, or mind. So volition is karma. Then without an intention or volition, you can't do anything. All the actions we do by body, speech, and mind, everything, even blinking, there has to be intention behind that. Nothing happens without intention. Nothing happens with volition. That means then everything creates karma. Every action we do by body, speech, and mind, if there's intention behind that, then there is karma. So the blink, also behind that there's intention. But because we are not mindful, we don't see that we intentionally blink. So if you like, you want to wink at a person, you wink, no, at people, you have, it can be many intentions behind winking, no? To express, it can be to express love. It can be to belittle a person. Likewise, their intentions can be there, different intentions. But accordingly, there will be karma. If you wink to a monk, that is what? Disrespect, bad karma. So even in day-to-day life, we wink, there is an intention behind that, but because we are not mindful, we don't see. Without intent, anything cannot happen. Okay? Because this volition is so fast acting, we are not able to grab onto it, like to understand its reality, because the mindfulness is not there. That's why we have to see the nature of the volition through what? Through samadhi. Practice calm and insight meditation. With the mind, with the one-pointedness of the mind, then you can see these things. Or else you can't see how this happens, because it happens very fast. And what is the source and origin of karma? Contact is the source and origin. Okay, karma, because it is with regard to things we see, hear, smell, taste, and think and touch that the thoughts arise in our mind. Intentions arise with regard to things we experience through the 6 senses. And therefore, then karma is generated. Therefore, contact has to be there. Eye contact, ear contact, nose, tongue, body, mind contact has to be there for karma to arise. That is why Buddha says contact is the source and origin of karma. And what is the diversity of karma? Buddha says there is karma to be experienced in the hell. Those karma you can't experience here. You have to go hell. You go to the hell to experience that karma. There is karma to be experienced in the animal realm. There is karma to be experienced in the realm of ghosts. There is karma to be experienced in the human world, and there is karma to be experienced in the Deva world. We have all that karma to experience. At the moment, we are experiencing what karma? Karma to experience in the human world. There are karma that we have done in our past life that we have to experience in the heavenly world, in the ghost world, in the animal world. We don't know when they will bear fruit. It can be next life. It can be any time, any moment. We don't know when they will bear fruit. So Buddha says, he explains, and what is the, and what is the, that is the diversity of karma. What is the result of karma? The result of karma, it says here, I say, is threefold. In this very life, there can be the results of karma. Or in the next rebirth, the very next life, you can experience the result of the karma. Or on subsequent occasion, until you attain Nibbana, in any life, you may experience karma. Ditta Dhamma Vedina karma is once you experience in this very life. Upavajja Vedana is next life. Aparapariya Vedana means in any life before you attain Nibbana, it will bear fruit and you will have to experience your karma. So the only way to get rid of karma is what? To practice the Noble Eightfold Path. Because when you practice the Noble Eightfold Path, when you become a stream mentor, then all the karma there was to bear fruit in the for bad destination. They are eradicated when you become a stream mentor. When you become a non-return anagami, what happens? All the karma there was accrued to bear fruit, to experience in the sensual realms, are totally eradicated. When you become arahat, no more karma, no more existence, no more rebirth. Okay? So that is why you have to, for the cessation of karma, you have to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. And what bhikkhus is the cessation of karma? With the cessation of contact, there is cessation of karma. So the cessation of contact comes by which? Comes by practicing the Noble Eightfold Path. So that is the only way. The practice of the Noble Eightfold Path is the solution. So in this way, noble disciples should understand all these with regard to karma. Then Buddha said the sixth aspect we discussed, when it was said suffering should be realized. Origin of suffering should be realized. Then the diversity of suffering should be realized. The results of suffering should be realized. The cessation of suffering should be realized. The way leading to the cessation of suffering should be realized. What was the meaning behind that? Buddha said, okay, suffering, what is suffering? Birth is suffering. Illness is suffering. Death is suffering. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, dejection, and anguish are suffering. Not getting what one wants is suffering. In brief, the five aggregates of clinging is suffering. Aging is suffering. It is something you see, all people suffer. You have all gotten sick. Didn't you suffer or not? You suffer. You have seen people die, seen people cry. They suffer. That is the nature, suffering. And Buddha said, if now what do we have in this life to say ours is the six senses. And with regard to six senses, Buddha said, if in any place in this world there are the six senses, there is suffering there. But we delight in the six senses. We delight in the five aggregates. But all these things, Buddha said, what? Is suffering. So if you delight in suffering, then can you find escape from suffering? Because you delight in suffering. Delighting in the six senses, delighting in the aggregates means delight in suffering. Because you have not seen the true nature of them. You find delight in them and they suffer because they definitely are subject to suffering. So in this way, suffering is, you have to understand what is suffering, okay? And what is the source and origin of suffering, that you should know. Source, the origin of suffering.
Someone says craving.
Very good. Craving. Craving is the origin of suffering. And what is the diversity? So that you can understand, no? It is with regard to things you are attached to that you will always suffer in this world. Because the things you are attached to are impermanent. You do not exercise control over them, be it animate or inanimate. As long as they are attached to you, then they will cause you suffering because their nature is they are impermanent. And when they have to give up, when you have to give them up because of that attachment, that desire, then you will suffer. If there is no attachment, then there is no suffering. If there are 100 things in this world that you are attached to, then there are 100 things for it to cause you suffering. If there are no things in this world that you are attached to, then no suffering, just like arahants. Okay, in that way, craving is the source of suffering. And what is the diversity of suffering? Diversity of suffering. Buddha said there is extreme suffering. There is light suffering. There is suffering that fades away slowly. There is suffering that fades away quickly. This is called the diversity of suffering. Okay, extreme suffering. When people suffer extremely, they commit suicide there. Some lose their mind because the pain is so overwhelming that they cannot bear. That is what? Diversity of suffering, extreme suffering. Then there is slight suffering. You get over that very quickly. And there is suffering that fades away slowly. It takes time to get over certain things. Say, if your lover leaves you, if you're broken-hearted, then it takes long to to fade away that. It takes long. If a mother loses their child, it takes long to fade away. There is suffering that fades away quickly also. There are such sufferings also. Quickly, you get over that. This is called the diversity of suffering. Okay? And what is the result of suffering? Buddha said. Here someone overcome by suffering with the mind obsessed by it, sorrows, languishes, and laments. And he weaves beating his breast and becomes confused. This is very nice, okay? The results of suffering. He said, here someone overcome by suffering with the mind obsessed by it, sorrows, languishes, and laments. He weeps, beating his breast and becomes confused. You have seen this, no, in funerals, when people beat themselves up, beating their breast with unbearable sorrow, grief, and they are confused. They get confused. They lose their mind. Overcome by suffering with the mind obsessed by it, he embarks upon a search outside, saying, who knows one or two words for putting an end to this suffering? They feel so helpless. We are discussing the results of suffering. Because of this, what is the result? He searches. Who knows one or two words for putting an end to this suffering? Suffering, I say, results in confusion. Now he is confused. And the other thing, there are two results of suffering. One is confusion and in search for escape from suffering. Those are the two results of suffering. The person is confused and then he begins to look for escape from this suffering. Now that is where all the religions comes in. All the other religions, they say, come to us, we have the savior. But Buddha says, you have to realize this. See how profound the teachings of the Buddha. He knows what's going on in a person. Everything in detail, every aspect, every subtle aspect Buddha has realized. And he says, this is what you have to do. You have to do it on your own. Only the Buddhas only show the way. But all other religions make use of this thing. What? That because of suffering, they look. If there is one person to say one or two words to help me out, there is no one. No true teaching to help them. They are in darkness. But we are fortunate because we came across the teachings of the Buddha. And what is the cessation of suffering? With the cessation of craving, there is the cessation of suffering. And therefore, to that end, you have to practice what? The Noble Eightfold Path. So, in this way, when a bhikkhu, a noble disciple, thus understands suffering, the source of origin of suffering, the diversity of suffering, the result of suffering, the cessation of suffering, and the way leading to cessation of suffering, he understands this penetrative spiritual life to be the cessation of suffering. There is no other way but to lead the spiritual life. This because is that penetrative exposition of the Dharma. There ends the Nibbedhika Sutta. So it's a very profound sutta, a beautiful sutta by the Buddha. So you can keep these things in mind and try to understand this aspect. One thing, again, it was reiterated, what? The Noble Eightfold Path. That is the only way that leads to escape from all of this. So that is where what we should focus on. Try to understand this. I think you understood to some extent. You can read the sutta and try to understand and keep in mind these things and contemplate accordingly. And the solution is to practice the Noble Eightfold Path. So I think we have some 10 minutes or so, I think, for the Dharma discussion. So if you have questions, you can ask.
Officer Sir, I have a question.
Yes, Subbu.
For the sensual pleasures of, for the diversity of sensual pleasures, can Sansa repeat what Sansa said for the diversity of sensual pleasures?
Diversity of sensual pleasures is in the sense like the sensual pleasure we derive from the forms, sounds, tastes, they are different. With regard to each of the chords, they are different because the forms are different from the sounds, no? Tastes are different. Likewise, that is the diversity. They are not the same. Okay? That is what the Buddha said, the diversities, they are each different. You can understand, no? The pleasure you derive from a form, you cannot derive from a sound. the same from a taste or the tangible, then they are each diverse. That is the meaning there, okay?
There was an example. Remember that King Kosala, I think, one of his couple of his friends had an argument about the sensual pleasures, which one is important.
Yeah, yeah, very good Dharma fact.
Yeah,
So like that is with regard to diversity of people also, no?
yeah,
That means in that case, they had argument. One say like the sensual, among the 5 codes of sensual pleasure, one can say no, the form, sensual pleasure form is more delightful. It is the foremost. The other can say no, sounds are more pleasing to me. So for other can say taste. So they had a debate as to consider what is the most delightful sensual pleasure, what's the most alluring thing among them. So Buddha said, no, for each person it can be different. Whatever that grabs their mind, that is the foremost thing for that person. So that say like your children, for a mother, for parents, their children is the most beautiful, the most handsome, or the most delightful things, the children in the world. So that's where they find delight in. So in the same way, for you, your husband or wife, likewise, there are certain things. Your car, your house may be the place that you delight in most. And certain song is your favorite song. It's not the same case for any other person. It's different for me person. So that was a very good Dharma point that is Mahatma Tilanga, no? Tilanga Mahatma said, okay. Any other questions? Okay. Yeah, we have 7 or 5 minutes now. Huh? How many is the time now? Should we stop? If there are no questions, we can stop.
We have actually 9 more minutes, one thing, about 8 more minutes.
8. If you have questions, you can ask.
Sarans, Officer Sarans, I have another question.
Mm-hmm.
In the story of Chapter Manavaka,
Yeah.
he, after listening to the Dhamma, he went to heaven. But I heard that you need to practice Sekabala to go to heaven. But he didn't practice the Sekabala. How did he go to heaven?
Well, I don't think like he was so very wise that you think like what happened to him. Like he met the Buddha. That is the moment he learned the qualities of the Buddha, the qualities of the Dhamma, qualities of the Sangha, and he became a virtuous person. And that person was bludgeoned to death. No, from that the people, the thieves, they killed him. They clubbed him to death. So even in such instance, that person was contemplating on the qualities of the Buddha, Dhamma, the Sangha. He didn't get angry. He didn't retaliate in any way. So if that is not the power of the Sekabala, what's that? He had Shraddha. He kept his virtue. His Dhamma knowledge is what he learned from the Buddha. And he was wise that he kept contemplating on the qualities of the Buddha. He didn't get angry. If he got angry, if he lost mindfulness, he would not have a good rebirth there. He had the Sekabala, momentary, very powerful way. They were instilled it in him in a way that is something what he did, what he achieved. That is why he was born there. He had Sekabala. Without Sekabala, you will not be reborn in the heavenly worlds. It's a must to have it. Okay?
Oh no, sir. Both things are an answer.
Welcome. Okay, anyone else?
No, but that sounds. I had a question as well. So like in the Buddhas, like just by learning the Dhamma, there's been certain like incidents where, for example, someone's collected like a lot of karma, like good karma, but then like for example, like King Ashoka, for example, he made lots of good karma, but then during the last kind of moments of his life, he got angry, so he was reborn in the ghost world. But then there are other stories like the executioner, who is friends with Arhan Sariputta, and he was reborn in the Brahma world, but he didn't really collect any good karma. So in that sense, what's the most important thing to have? Like, is it like mindfulness before you pass away? Like, will that kind of offset the good karma and bad karma that you collected?
Offset the good and mindfulness.
Like,
Well, in those instances, in that case was Migalantika, I think the executioner. So in any way, in those cases, that person was very wise. Like he was able to make the most of the opportunity he got. Like it's not just mindfulness. You have to have the wisdom. If not, you can't overcome these situations in that way. Like to face such trying situations, that normally a person, if you have been executioner for many years and acquire so much of demerits, he would be regretful of his life. But without regretting all that, he was able to focus what the teachings of the Sariputta and gain confidence in the Dhamma, the Buddha, and also Venerable Arahant Sariputta particularly. It is these qualities that he was able to cultivate within himself, instill within himself in a short span. It is not just mindfulness, it's the wisdom of the person. Even in the case of Alavaka, he threatened the Buddha, he threatened to take the Buddha from his feet and like take him off from the feet and throw him away. He said he would do that even. So such a person, then thereafter he forgets all that. Even in the case of Angulimala, all the regrets, no regrets in their life. They just, the moment they corrected themselves after going for refuge, the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, they stayed on the path. They were able to give that all that up and just focus on the matter in hand. That requires wisdom. And when there's wisdom coupled with mindfulness, then you can face any situation. Or else you fail. There was a case where Buddha, along with a retinue of monks, they went to a certain village called Tuna. This is a Brahmin village. All of the village, they are Brahmins, and the Brahmins hated, we know, the Buddha and the monks. So they covered all the wells in the Tuna village with hay, so that they would not have water. So Buddha was thirsty and he asked Venerable Arana Swamiyasa to fetch some water from the well. So Arana Swamiyasa is going from one well to the other, and all the wells are closed, sealed with hay. So no water. He returns to the Buddha. The Buddha said, "No, Ananda, I am thirsty, I need water." The next time he goes, there's a fountain of water flowing out of the wells because the Buddha's power, Buddha's spiritual power. The earth, the mother earth could feel the qualities of the Buddha, whereas the Brahmanis couldn't. So Buddha was served water by Arahant Swamiyasa. But in the same day, something else happened. There, in the case of an Arahant, he couldn't find water for himself. And he was walking and with fatigue, he fell. He fainted in front of house, fortunately. And the Brahmins, beforehand, they had informed all the village people, no one needs to offer water to the people, the Buddha or the monks. If so, they will be punished if they were to offer water. So everyone was scared. Even if they wanted to help out, offer anything to the Sangha, they couldn't. They were scared. They had to close their doors and windows and be inside. But this lady saw that that Arahant fainted. That person fainted. So he couldn't wait inside. She went and asked, "What happened? Can I help you?" Then the Arahant monk said, "I'm thirsty." So she knew what would happen to her. She knew she would be punished, but out of compassion, she offered water. So the Arahant, he went, and the Buddha also left from the village, the retinue of monks. But later on, the people, the leaders of the village, the Brahmins got to know that that particular lady, had offered water to the monks, and they were furious. So they said, what they decided to do was to stone her to death. That was the decision they came to. That was the punishment, to stone her to death. So she was stoned to death, but she was born in the Deva's world, in a huge mansion with a pool of water surrounding the mansion, a beautiful Deva. And when Venerable Arahant Moggallana, seeing her, one day asked, What is the merit you did? What are the meritorious deeds you did to be such a powerful, fabulous looking deva? Then she said, I didn't do any merits other than offering water to an arhat. That's all I have done in my life as meritorious deeds. But she was able to have a pleasant state of mind throughout about the good deeds she did. Even in such a dire state where she was torn to death, she was able to protect her mind. She didn't get angry. She didn't regret what she had done. She was happy. That's mindfulness coupled with wisdom. And she was born in the Devas world. That's how you have to understand that, okay?